Hey guys, just wanted to make a hopefully quick video going over just my thoughts and feedback, opinions, all that jazz on Rogue heading into Midnight. I've got some time playing on the beta, kind of dabbled in all three specs, so have a good kind of sense of all of them at the moment. I'm not going to be going over every single change they've made in this development cycle, as we'd probably be here for hours, but just want to give my main thoughts and feedback and kind of the big overall scope of things. Starting with Assassination, one of the biggest changes heading into Midnight is the removal or lessening requirement of re-stealthing, specifically in Mythic Plus. As you can see here, taking a look at the talent tree, there is no indiscriminate carnage, and then on top of that, Deathstalker's Mark now applies from your garrote and not your ambush from stealth. So this is just a way to lessen the impact of needing to re-stealth, pack between pack, or even when changing targets in a raid environment. You might think, oh, how do I spread bleeds now? You spread bleeds via the new Crimson Tempest, which is now just a very expensive fan of knives, and it will copy your garrote and rupture onto two other enemies you can hit. I can give an example of this right here. As you can see here, if I were to walk up to this pack, I can apply my Deathstalker's Mark with Garrote, apply a Rupture, and then if I hit Crimson Tempest, you can see it spread onto all of these other training dummies. One side effect of this is that we no longer kind of have any agency on which targets get this bleed. I'm not entirely sure if there's any prioritization that goes on in terms of high HP mobs, or if it's just kind of pick any random two enemies. So this is kind of a nerf in terms of what it is on live, but I think it'll be fine at the end of the day, but hopefully they can address that if it becomes an issue. With that being said, re-stealthing and vanishing offensively isn't entirely dead yet, as improved Garrote still exists and ties in with Midnight's Season 1 tier set being related to Garrote damage as well. So, not entirely dead, but definitely less important. Another massive change with Midnight is Shiv was entirely removed from our offensive rotation and moved strictly back to utility. We take a look here, there's no Shiv related talents in the talent tree outside of the baseline Soothe, single target Soothe. So, no more pressing Shiv for your cooldowns. Another massive change and kind of gameplay direction of the spec now is the importance of energy. Venomous Wounds was a very strong talent in the War Within, allowing us to essentially ignore energy and our resource in AoE, and then abuse it to apply Rupture onto a mob that's about to die to basically get all of our energy back. So this has been severely nerfed in AoE, as you can read the tooltip here, and nerfed in single target as well. It's very clear they want energy to be something we care about, as they kind of double down on that in the Apex talent that allows us to build a stacking energy regeneration buff. So there will probably be some optimizations around maximizing the amount of energy we get in return from this buff. So look out for that in the future when things are a bit more figured out. One simple change to Caustic Spatter now basically just applies on an Envenom or Kingsbane. No longer requires the awkward Mutilate in AoE, and also doesn't require Rupture or your poisons to be on the target. One thing I'm not the biggest fan of is the talent tree feels a bit awkward. There seems to be some things out of place, i.e., Caustic Spatter basically always needing to be taken, even in single target, which previously wasn't necessarily the case. And then amplifying poison, gating a bunch of bleed talents seems a bit awkward. But I mean, talent trees are talent trees; they are what they are. Ideally, they can move some things around, but probably not going to happen. But overall, still plays very similar to how it does in live, or the War Within. Uh, Basically, hitting Envenom on cooldown whenever you can. Deathmark, Kingsbane on cooldown. Pretty much the same thing, minus Shiv. So, if you already play Asa and you like it, you'll probably like it in Midnight. Rolling over to Outlaw. This spec I'm probably the most indifferent about, but we can start with a good change is the change to roll the bone. So very simplified. This was kind of expected with the removal of weak auras and combat add-ons, stuff like that. So I think this is just overall a way more understandable system. And another benefit to it is that it seems a little bit less punishing to roll low versus roll high. There's still a benefit to rolling high, obviously, but feels less bad. So overall, good change. Next change for Outlaw we can talk about is the removal of stealth effects, essentially. So crack shot is gone, and underhanded upper hand is removed as well. Those two talents were pretty much critical to current Outlaw in the War Within, allowing you to maintain really high adrenaline rush uptime and hit between the eyes a lot more frequently. Personally, I'm a bit indifferent about this, as Outlaw in Dragonflight Season 3 was the first time I really played the game, so I really got to enjoy learning that spec, the fast gameplay, and probably really the only reason why I still play the game today. Um, is getting hooked on that spec, so feels a little sad to see it go, but there's been some good iterations of Outlaw before that, according to some folks I've talked to, so as long as it's fun, I think we'll be in a good spot. There are some changes I'm not really too big of a fan of. One being your auto attacks do a lot of your damage. Uh, on your breakdown here, if you look at this log, you can see that outside of Blade Flurry, which is pretty much everything in AoE, but as you can see, auto attacks in the Mastery, which got buffed, are very high up there, and it's almost like not that it's not worth pressing the buttons, but man, they do a lot of damage. So it's very important you stay on your target the entire time. They also nerfed Ace Up Your Sleeve again. Basically, the identical nerf they gave it heading into the War Within, with it giving one less combo point than it did before. Um, I don't know why they did this again. If they're just probably going to end up buffing it again, seems just kind of like a pointless thing to do to me, especially on a 2-point node. Um, but one thing Ace Up Your Sleeve does now is resets between the eyes' cooldown, so you kind of have that crack shot esque feel of being able to jam between the eyes, which still feels nice. Overall, though, I would say Outlaw has some pretty underwhelming capstones. This new one, Preparation, immediately resets the cooldown of Adrenaline Rush between the eyes, Blade Flurry, Blade Rush, and Killing Spree. Kind of useless, as you're just wasting the cooldown reduction you would get on all these abilities after you press this. So you'd obviously be very incentivized to hit all these buttons, press Preparation, and then you have them all up again for when they fall off. Which, for a 4-minute cooldown, especially not on the cooldown reduction already, just seems kind of useless. And then we have Fast Action, just reduces the cooldown of between the eyes by 5 seconds. This is essentially just getting it like 1 or 2 globals faster with CDR. Between the eyes doesn't do that much damage, so it's not really even worth it. Killing Spree, you're pretty much only taking this on Trickster. And then Hidden Opportunity is just kind of is what it is. So, kind of underwhelming capstone talent. And then if we move over to the Apex talent, it's basically just you can build up to like a free ace proc, and then you might stack your between the eyes buff more. But I mean, very overwhelming capstone and Apex talents. But I think if they can buff these or change them before release, that would be awesome. Overall, in my time playing, I still kind of enjoyed it. Still felt pretty fun pressing buttons fast. Still faster than the other specs, I would say. But definitely not the crazy 90% adrenaline rush uptime gameplay from today's gameplay. It is a bit less punishing, so a little bit more open to more players, and less variance could allow for better tuning, hopefully. The mastery did get buffed, but in my opinion, still kind of sucks. Kind of lame offhand random attack. Doesn't really have any cool animation to it either, so you don't even get the satisfaction of it hitting. Overall, hopeful that the spec is at least still remotely fun to play. and well tuned to maybe even see some action during progression, which has not happened in a while. Going over to subtlety, if you're looking at the gameplay, you're probably wondering where did all your buttons go? And Blizzard removed them. So no more flagellation, no more rupture, no more symbols. Blizzard found these buttons to be too redundant, especially with kind of how some changes rolled out over the alpha and the beta. So they went ahead and removed symbols of death and rupture. Flagellation, they're kind of just cutting down on burst damage in general. So removing that was kind of expected, even if it was built in somewhere else, which it's not. Kind of expected it to be removed as there wasn't much gameplay around it other than pressing in a few globals before Shadow Blades. A really cool change to the spec is Shadow Clones. Um, so a lot of your Rupture talents and multi-strike talents were kind of reworked to spawn Shadow Clones and do damage. Our Apex talent is designed around this as well. So I'll probably show a picture of the Shadow Clones on screen. And yeah, they look pretty cool. Pretty sick, pretty thematic. Pretty good change. Can't really complain about looking cool and having little purple guys come out and strike. So pretty sick. Another change to kind of simplify the spec a bit was an AoE. It's pretty much Shuriken and Storm, Black Powder as your builder spender, outside of the Eviscerate when your hero talent warrants it. So Eviscerate on Darkest Night, Eviscerate on Coup de Grace. Another change they made is they wanted to increase the value of some undesired stats. If you've played Sub before, you know haste, you are basically allergic to it in the War Within. Now they've tied Shadow Dance duration as well as Secret Technique cooldown. Fortunately, this is probably just going to end up creating a breakpoint scenario where you want X amount of haste, get X amount of globals in Shadow Dance, or X amount of Secret Techniques in your Shadow Blades, or whatever. So, kind of good, kind of bad, depending on how you see that. But opens the door for haste, trinkets, or anything like that. So, good change overall. Now you're probably looking at the spec, and if you look at the buttons I'm tracking in the gameplay, you're probably wondering, did they prune the spec too much? And I want to say no, because the interactions they removed were just kind of useless. You think of Rupture, it's just, oh, Rupture fell off, better reapply it, or it's about to fall off, better reapply it, or, okay, I Shadow Dance, so I need to press Symbols of Death now. Like, they were very just pointless buttons to begin with. I don't really think they added, depth to the spec. Like, they don't really do anything. So I think removing them to just build them into Shadow Dance or whatever makes a lot of sense. But overall, there's still some optimizations being thought of in the Rogue Discord. Still some optimizations to be found. So I'm sure the spec will definitely be very easy to learn, but will probably be a little bit more in depth. Also, I've just been having a blast playing it on the beta, so I mean, if that's the trade-off, I'll take that any day of the week. Overall, if you're looking to play Rogue in Midnight, probably say go for it. Definitely give it a try when pre-patch comes out, or beta comes out for you, you don't have it already, or even when Midnight comes out in March. Definitely give it a try. All three specs are looking really good. I think Outlaw could use a bit more juice, but might not be for everyone. This is kind of my personal preference, but I've heard some people love it, so definitely give it a try, especially if your class got shot out back. Rogue might be home for you, who knows. That's going to be it for the video here today. Make a follow-up video if there's any future changes that warrant it, even if it's just reading the blue post with no desired gameplay or anything. But yeah, heading into Midnight, I want to make a bit more content, so expect to see some guides coming around probably the launch of the expansion or Season 1, whichever one I can get them out by. Otherwise, yeah, thanks for watching.